Okay, so we were all witness to this most recent play-in game in the NBA, the Lakers versus the Timberwolves. And while the Timberwolves were winning near the end of the game, somehow the LA Lakers pulled back and won in overtime. And a lot of people are starting to think that this was kind of rigged. Let me explain, because I kind of think that too. So while we're basically fast forwarding until the end of the actual game, we can see that Minnesota was having a lead for majority of the game. Then in the second quarter, LA started to pull back just a bit. Now, when we continue to fast forward through this game into the third, Minnesota has a good lead once again. And they continue to fight all the way until the end. Now they've got a 13-point lead. This is starting to grow to an interesting amount. But it tends to hover somewhere in that 10-point range for almost the entire game. Now, when we're getting near the end of the third quarter, still around 10 points. So it looks like Minnesota is going to basically be having a comfortable win. They've had their lead, they've built it, and they can hold it. And they were holding it for a pretty long time. Now with 8 minutes left, the LA Lakers start getting close. And they get even closer. Now, when we fast forward until near the end, there's a few things that happen that just absolutely blow my mind. There's a lot of missed coverage here. First off, LeBron is known as a big game shooter. And even though many people like myself don't really look at him as one of those types of players, he will hit threes with the clock running down and he'll somehow make them. This is not a credible role player who's going to be setting that screen and rolling. You don't have to worry about LeBron passing him the ball because, generally speaking, help side should be there. However, this man is not paying attention to the ball. That's number one. Number two, Towns doesn't get up on LeBron to contest that shot. He has his hands down, hand down, man down. I would have been trying to blitz that screen if I was the coach, but they were not blitzing that screen for any of the top players for the Lakers. So now they've tied that game up with 2 minutes left. Now coming down to the last and final seconds, this is what really does concern me. There's 4 seconds left on the clock, and then, of course, Schroeder makes that 3. Now, this should be really the hardest shot in the game. You are literally in front of the opposing team's bench. Tie game, 3 seconds left, and we have one player with his arms crossed. We have one man with his hands on his head saying, "Oh my gosh." There is nobody there making noise. I know if I was the coach, I would be screaming at the very minimum, shots up, shots up, shots up, just to at least make some kind of noise. Because if you're calling shot is up, that is not a technical foul. You're allowed to call up and tell your team that somebody is shooting. That is one way that you can get into the head of the other team. These guys should be absolutely making as much noise as humanly possible. Getting into his head, saying, "Hey, you're going to get blocked," or something. Gotta say something. But they allow him to hit the shot. Now, this is the part what makes me believe that this was not a fixed game. Because while this game had a lot of issues and a lot of defensive lapses by Minnesota, this right here is the only reason I think that this game was not rigged. The only reason. And that is, if this was not a rigged game, if this was a rigged game, this referee would have never called that foul. Either it was a rigged game and Anthony Davis screwed it, or basically he just gave the other team a chance to win, or they wanted to make it look like they were going to not have it rigged. And maybe it was rigged. And maybe the free throw shooter screwed up. He hits one shot short. Okay. So let's see the second shot. Next shot, Perfect. Okay. So now, what's the third shot look like? Third shot, he steps over that line, technically a violation. He has to wait until it hits the rim because he's the shooter. And it hits the back of the rim and goes in. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, okay, well, they're just going to lose it in overtime. And this is what I mean by massive defensive lapses. You literally have a mismatched coverage who's not even covering the guy who can actually shoot threes. And then they give an easy give and go down the middle of the key. Simple defensive mistakes that killed Minnesota. Now, this is another mistake, and I understand the fact that they're looking to hit a three. They're down by 3, 16 seconds left. They could have went for a 2 and fouled. And this guy leaks out. This guy should have been cutting in. This should have been a bounce pass to this guy who was cutting at the 45. Didn't happen. Yeah, this guy could have intercepted it, but in reality, if this was a good enough cut early, this could have been a pass, and then layup, and then they would have been down by 1. So transition offense is clearly not there for Minnesota either. They missed their 3. Lakers get the rebound, foul. At this point, you've basically just screwed yourself. You just have to pass to backcourt and let yourself have fun. And they get the foul, free throws, game over. So was this game rigged? It's got a good potential because, of course, the NBA knows that an NBA playoffs without LeBron in it is going to be really bad for ratings. An NBA playoff game without the Golden State Warriors in it is going to be very bad for ratings. So, yes, this game may have had just a bit of a riggingness to it, but in reality, even though it's pro-level basketball, it's the highest level in the world, these athletes will still make mistakes. This is why I always preach to players, be as smart as possible. You don't have to be always the best athlete or the most skilled. If you're just smart, you'll have an advantage. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.